She was working on Wall Street, very
Oh,
successful
wow.
on Wall Street. And I'm trying to convince her, hey, listen, why don't we start an advertising agency together? She thought I was crazy.
Welcome to an inspirational interview on the Share Life podcast. I'm Jason Scott Montoya, and today I'm with Dr. James Gregory. Dr. James, say hello.
Greetings, everyone.
Now, you became a doctor fairly recently.
Did around 2013 is
Okay.
when I started that. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll dive in a little bit to that. So, Jim is an expert in corporate branding, and he's the author of many books, including several novels that are coming out. One is called Killer App, a novel about artificial intelligence, and another book called Zephyr's War. Zephyr's War, a story of espionage. And he co-founded a global brand management firm in New York City, and he ran it successfully for 40 years. After selling his company in 2013, he didn't retire. He pursued a doctorate at the Muma College of Business, University of South Florida, and transitioned into writing fiction. So after that business venture, became a doctor and then a fictional writer. So we got to figure out what's going on there. You got this entrepreneurial angle as well, so that's something we share in common. Give us the high level view of your story and how you ended up where you are now through all the twists and turns.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason, for having me on your show. Yeah, I have a fairly interesting background. It's certainly unusual. When I graduated from college in 1971, I really had a big desire to go to New York City and open up my own firm
Yeah.
and my own
Why New York?
advertising agency.
Out of all, just because of
It's the
the
Big
prestige?
Apple. It's
Yeah.
the Big Apple, and I know that you're in the Atlanta area, and I looked at Atlanta and thought about it,
Yeah.
and it was an up and coming
Hmm.
area for advertising at that time.
Yeah.
But I always had my vision was on New York City, and
Yeah.
I got there and really got my head kicked in immediately. You know, I got there right as a recession was happening.
Mm,
I had my resume out to 500 different
wow.
companies,
Yeah.
and I can remember I went in
And
for a meeting.
that was in the 70s, so it wasn't like you were like printing on the computer and
No,
work,
no,
typing
this is
away.
this is where you needed a T square, and had to know about typography and
Yeah.
what 12-point type really meant. And so we I went into New York and tried to get a job and really struggled with that. I had some freelance assignments, but I can remember going into the offices of J. Walter Thompson, and the person I was interviewing with said, "Well, listen, I want to tell you how bad it is. You know, just come with me for a second." And he opened up the door to the main area where all the office cubicles were, and they were empty. He said, "We just
Mm,
laid off hundreds of people. How can we
wow.
even think about hiring somebody new?" So that was it. And I started thinking about, well, what could I do to start my own business? And I ran into a beautiful woman on a subway, and she caught my eye and caught my heart. I followed her out of the subway to catch up with her, and there was a huge rainstorm in New York, and I had an umbrella with me, so I came running up and offered her my umbrella. That became my future partner and my wife, and we started dating. And I said, she said, what are you planning on doing? She was in working on Wall Street, very
Oh,
successful
wow.
on Wall Street. And I'm trying to convince her, hey, listen, why don't we start an advertising agency together? She thought I was crazy.
What year was that?
What's that?
What
No,
year was that? That
was in 1973. So that was
Okay.
like 2 years after I got into New York. I realized that I needed to do something drastically different,
Mm,
and we did. We launched this firm, and our first client was the Long Island Railroad timetables, just doing timetables, and it got us started. It was wonderful. It
yeah.
was a great experience. And she really helped me. She ran the business. I was out there pitching accounts and the creative force. and we picked up little pieces of business,
Huh.
it started growing and doing very well, but to a limited degree. There was always an issue in our firm or any advertising agency, and you probably experienced this yourself. Is you're it's you need your own brand. You really need to stand for something. You really need to break through and be out there on the leading edge of something. And
Yeah.
so otherwise, you're just giving away your best ideas.
Hmm.
You're doing it. You're giving away your ideas so that you can do the production.
Yeah.
The cheap.
Yeah.
You're giving away your best, most valuable ideas to
Yeah.
do the least expensive thing, and it just drove me crazy. So
Have
we,
you ever have you ever heard Blair Enns Win Without Pitching? Are you familiar
yes,
with
that's
his
very
work?
much the philosophy I
Yeah.
had, very much.
Yeah.
Um, so we developed something called the corporate branding. And
Yeah.
none of our competitors were interested in corporate branding. They were all focused on product branding. And so we started researching this corporate branding concept and started promoting it and talking about it and writing books about it. I wrote a number of books. One is called Marketing Corporate Image. Another one is Leveraging the Corporate Brand, Branding Across Borders, The Best of Branding. All these books were published by McGraw-Hill and really gave us credibility. Uh,
Yeah.
and Business Week was owned by McGraw-Hill, and
Oh, okay.
Business Week
Wow.
was one of our clients.
Yeah.
So they were promoting my books. McGraw-Hill was they were promoting my books, and it was so successful that Business Week then sent me on a worldwide tour of their
Wow.
all their offices around the world to to talk about the books, and the books promote advertising. It's like saying advertising works. It brings great return on investment. You'll do really well if you advertise consistently over time, and I gave various formulas and that sort of thing and ways to evaluate it. The books did well. They were published in numerous different
Yeah.
languages: Chinese, Japanese, Korean.
Are they
Uh,
still available now? Those ones?
yeah, they are. But if you can't find one, I have a storehouse
Okay.
of them.
Yeah,
So this
yeah.
yeah, those books are available.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
anyway, so that was that was very successful. We had a great run. I mean, 40 years is a long time to run a business, and especially one like an advertising type firm. It
Mhm.
takes a lot out of you. It's an
Yeah.
all in every single day, or you're losing. And
Yeah.
we had offices around the world. We had offices in California and in Tokyo, in Frankfurt, Germany. I mean, and but but I was tired. I was
Hmm.
exhausted. I tired of
Yeah.
doing the same thing. So in 2013, we decided to sell the company, and we sold it to a competitor roughly our size, which I was warned against doing, but it turned out to be a pretty good idea. Somebody I
Yeah.
could relate to, and but the bad thing was that I didn't like golf. I didn't have any other interests. I had grandchildren, but I really you know needed something to do. Other than that,
Yeah.
I liked fine arts. But I really enjoyed writing. So
Hmm.
I went back to school and got my doctorate in business. That I don't recommend. For, that was that was a that was a slog. That was a real
Mm.
tough thing.
Are you saying you wish you hadn't done it, or you wish you've gotten a different degree, or you're just saying it was hard, so don't do it unless you really want to do it?
I think the latter.
Okay.
It wasn't a bad thing for me. It was a good thing that I went through, but it was 3 years of my life that really were hard. It
Yeah.
was, it's an all-in effort, and so I went from running an ad agency all in to doing a doctoral thing that all in on that, and so that was a
Yeah.
pretty wild ride.
Well, what inspired you or compelled you to go get the doctorate?
Uh, honest, you talk about believing in advertising. I got a postcard
Yeah.
from the dean of the school. It was just
Okay.
a mass-produced postcard, and it was one sentence. He said, "Have you did you leave anything unaccomplished? Is there
Mm,
anything still out there that you would like to
yeah.
do?" And he said, "You might want to consider a doctorate." And
Mm,
here's, call here or read, here's our website
yeah.
for I I saw that postcard and I was
Yeah.
did it. And
Now a lot of
it was good.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say a lot of people at that age they might go, well, it's too late for me, da da da. They have all kinds of reasons, but you didn't let those stop you. So, what would you say to that person if they're listening or watching now?
Well, if you know, I've always been like that. I
Yeah.
always,
Okay.
people told me that I couldn't go to New York. They told me that I couldn't open up an advertising on Madison Avenue. I did it by the time I age as 23. I mean, it's like, of course you can do it. You can do anything you want. You just you just do it, and so it wasn't easy. It's very challenging, but it's also fun, and it gives you a great sense of accomplishment to do something
Mm,
like that. And
yeah.
it got me back into writing. The
Mm,
academic writing is a lot different than
yeah.
fictional writing in most cases, but it got me back into research. It got me back into
Mm,
writing, and I started having fun writing uh,
yeah.
different various things. And I'll share some of them. Like this is called Columbia the Street. This book. It was about growing up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, in this little town in western Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and uh, Columbia was the name of the street. And I
Mm.
thought Columbia was the center of the universe when I was, from 6 to 10 years old. I thought, Columbia, the country, and Columbia University were named after Columbia Street. That was my perspective. But I did this with my brothers as a COVID
Oh,
project.
okay.
So we
Yeah.
worked together and wrote this thing. Lots of fun. Uh, I wrote a memoir about my wife and I working together, and it's a series of novellas. These
Okay.
are all available on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. But this Small Fortunes was there are three books in one, and told our story about how we were able to open up
Yeah.
a firm and work together, and the challenges that we had.
Now,
Uh,
what? Just to pause you for a second there. What advice would you give to those couples out there that are thinking about it, maybe in the middle of it, or maybe in the middle of it and kind of regretting it a little bit?
well, it's a wonderful thing to have somebody who is totally behind you.
Yeah.
Uh, my wife and I worked together as partners. Her advice was so incredibly valuable to me. Only one time in my whole career, 40 years of working together, did I decide that she was wrong and I was going to do something else, go in a different direction. It was actually hiring somebody. She told me not to hire someone. And I said, I really like this guy. I really want him in the company. And that's the third.
That's a third
Um,
story.
what happened as a result of that, she was absolutely right. The person wasn't trustworthy, turned against our company, tried to take it over, and
Wow.
single-handedly, I was on one of these world tours. She single-handedly saved the company from
Wow.
him. So, yeah,
So when you're writing, when you say the novella is like, are you literally telling the actual story, or are you making it a fictional version of the real story?
everybody who reads this knows it's my wife and I. It's a story about my wife and I, but the
Mm,
names are all changed.
got it. Okay.
All the client names are changed. All the
Yeah.
clients are made up. The
Yeah.
company names are made up.
Yeah.
I couldn't use the real ones. It would
Mm,
require just too many um, approvals, and I probably wouldn't get them anyway.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. So
But
yeah, we'll
I would
continue. Yeah.
I would encourage people to work with their wives, especially if they've are already there. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing if it works, and if it doesn't, don't put the stress on the marriage. Save,
Mhm.
focus on the marriage, and you can always find another business partner.
Yeah. Cool. So tell us the next chapter then of your story.
Well, then I decided that I really wanted to try writing fiction, and
And what year was that when you decided that?
oh gosh, that was probably, I don't know, about 5 years ago, I would say.
Okay. So right after the
But
pandemic or during it?
yeah, right after the pandemic,
Yeah.
my book on my project, pandemic project, was finished, and I, we, I had a lot of ideas, and just started writing, and it wasn't one day I'm going to start and work on
Yeah.
this novel. Anyway, I had a lot of ideas from my business years that uh, I've always been a storyteller. I've always
Mhm.
enjoyed telling stories, and so one of the things that I had done really in my global travels was I spent time in Ukraine, in Kiev, and I gave a keynote speech there where the Russian media came to listen to me, and
Mm,
they wanted to interview me. And my hosts, Ukrainian hosts, didn't want that to happen, and they ran interference. And I found that to be most unusual and
yeah.
very disconcerting. And
What year was that?
that was a couple of years before the war started, so it's
Okay.
roughly the same time frame.
Okay.
Uh, um, and anyway, so uh, I sensed this tension that was really intense and
Yeah.
very deep between them, and I got a sense that there was going to be a war, and there were demonstrations in the streets.
Mhm.
The prime minister was poisoned. It was just
Mhm.
really ugly stuff.
Yeah.
And I started writing Zephyr's War. Now, Zephyr's War, very little of it takes place in Ukraine, but it's more of the attitude of the Ukrainian capitalist versus the attitude of a Russian mafia, and
Mm,
that's the that's the conflict here: the
yeah.
Ukrainian capitalism versus Russian mafia, and
Mm,
it almost transpires to the story, the political story,
yeah.
but uh, it was a fun book. It was really a fun book to write. I mean, it felt like such a true story that I lived and
Mm,
experienced. And then the capitalist Zephyr comes to New York and launches an IPO,
mhm.
an um, and so his IPO was successful, but the Russians wanted a piece of it. They weren't happy with his success. They wanted to grab some of it. So that book came out in 2024, in August of
Okay.
2024.
So Zephyr's War is available. Who's a good fit to read that one?
Oh gosh,
Who do you
anyone
think?
who wants a quick read, it's like if you've got a 4 or 5 hour flight. It's a perfect
Okay.
book, perfect
Yeah.
book for it.
Cool.
And so
So a good gift for our fathers to buy for our dads to read on their plane flight to visit us
yeah,
or to leave.
absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Um, and then I had already started Killer App, which was uh, about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And I had to do some background research on that. So I did a 6 week course at MIT to really make sure I understood what artificial intelligence was all about. And,
Mm,
from the beginning, artificial intelligence has always been about trying to make machines imitate or make machines imitate intelligent beings,
yeah.
and to be able to communicate. And that we experience it every day with things like Siri and
Mm,
Alexa and all of that. So um, so what happens in this book is this journalist, Bryce Bogle, is very much interested in improving his abilities, and we all are,
yeah.
to write better and to tell his story better and that sort of thing. And his mother, this encourages him to think about artificial intelligence, and she suggests this particular one, which is called Artificial Intelligence Made Easy. So they call it Amy for short.
Yeah.
And Amy is he purchases the app and starts using it, and it's just fantastic. It's going really well. It's his articles are zooming around. They getting a lot of publicity, and he's getting a great following, until the app suddenly knows more about his dating practices than he ever wanted to have happen. So he gets very uncomfortable with that, tries to talk to Amy into not doing that, and she does it anyway. And then he tries to uninstall the app off his computer, and she
Yeah.
says, not so fast. You're not going to be able to do that. So he brings in IT people; they can't do it, and she takes over more and more of the company. And
Mm,
there's an underlying story as well, a secondary story in that uh, Bryce's mother, who encouraged him to use AI, was part of the development group that created Amy. So
mm,
there's a subtle underlying story. It's a fun read. Again,
yeah.
it's a short read. It's a long weekend, something like that. You don't have to
Okay.
plan weeks to read it. And there's a second book in here as well called Artifacts.
Okay.
It's about a third of this. It's a little bonus. And Artifacts. Both my wife and I are archaeologists in terms of aspiring archaeologists, and we've been taking courses for years on archaeology. And we live in the summer in Williamsburg, Virginia, and Jamestown, Virginia, and we go on
Okay.
archaeological digs. And
Mm,
this, what I found really interesting is every time you find an artifact, an archaeologist, or at least for me, every time I found something, I made a connection with that artifact, the people who owned that artifact, whether it's a piece of a teacup or it's a bullet or no matter what it
yeah.
is, it's a spring out of a watch. You have a feeling of relating to the people who owned
Mm,
that previously.
yeah.
And that feeling becomes manifest in some really challenging problems that the protagonist finds happening in the
Mm,
book.
yeah. Okay.
So I try to write fun books, I mean, entertaining. I don't like to leave it on a down note. I always like to be uplifting,
Yeah.
uh, and I get great satisfaction. Have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. So what's it like to transition and transform your vocation in such a dramatic way? Like, what's it like to go through that, and then how is it on the other side?
Well, what an interesting question. I have transitioned my whole life. I've been changing all the time, always looking for opportunities, always changing. And once I find something really good, I stick with it for a long time. 40 years
Yeah.
to run a business, for example. And and this writing has been a 10-year project. So and they can overlap. Things can,
Mm,
they don't all have to be linear. They can overlap.
mhm.
And I think it's really fun and interesting to be able to be flexible enough to see opportunities and to pursue them with abandon. Just do it. Have a good time. We're only here
Yeah.
for so long. Uh, Try to enjoy life as much as possible. I truly believe that that is part of God's plan. Is this limited time. You think you have forever, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're 75 years old, and you
Mm.
said, "Well, what have I accomplished?" I accomplished a lot, but there's still
Yeah.
things to accomplish, and that's what makes life wonderful.
So how do you think about the rest of your life in that from that point of view?
I have so many irons in the fire; it's amazing, and I plan to get most of them finished.
Yeah.
And life is wonderful. It's a great ride, and you know there are extenuating circumstances where people are not well or something like that. I feel for them. My heart breaks if you can't help your situation. But there's so many people who have an opportunity to do things, and they're just time is slipping through their hands, and they
Mhm.
don't take advantage of them. They just don't realize the precious gift we're given.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't appreciate what we have until we've lost what we've got.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So when you kind of think just, about living and living better, like what kind of advice would you give to people to like, what does it look like to live better? Taking kind of your experiences as
Well,
informing that.
a pretty simple philosophy. It's like be in the present. Be
Mhm.
be present. Uh, if you live in the present, you don't have to think about the past. You don't have to think about the future. You can take advantage of the things that are right there in front of you, and and you'll be rewarded because there's so much that you'll gain from that. There's so much life to be lived, and you can live it by being in the present. If your mind drifts off, and you're always thinking of other things. Oh gosh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that, or I missed the opportunity. It slides right by you, and then it's in the rearview mirror. It's too late to do anything about it. Do it while you're living, while you're alive, while you've got this wonderful opportunity.
Yeah. And what about work? Like, what does it mean to work smarter and more effectively and at scale? And
I think it's important to be open minded to other things. One of the reasons I wrote Killer App is because there was so much bad publicity being written about it, about
Mhm.
all the things that it can do wrong, and mess up your life, and oh my, all the negative stuff. Well, I put it all in one book. All those negative things are happened to this poor guy Bryce Bogle, and how he deals with it, and in the end, it's an uplifting, and people begin to see artificial intelligence as something it's simply a tool. It's not out to get you. It's not out to ruin your life. Like any wonderful technology, there are going to be bad players that are going to
Yeah.
cause harm, but you can't just ignore that. Just plow through it and use the good aspects of artificial intelligence, and you'll get a lot out of it.
Yeah. Is there like did you have any connection to AI and when you were in the business arena, or was that mostly after you were out of the business world?
It was mostly out of it, but I'll tell you that the world that you and I worked in, the advertising branding world, changed so much from the time that I started in it. When I started, you had to use, have a T square, you had to have magic markers. That's how you created comps and ideas, and you put them together. You had to have real creative, artistic talent. Well, just that alone, within 10 years of the time I got into the business, it was entirely different.
Yeah.
And that used to set type through typography machines that created they literally called it hot type because it was molten metal. Uh, and in 10 years, it was called cold type because it was generated by computer. I mean, so the technology has changed 360 degrees many times in our field, in the field that you and I practiced in, and it's changed so many times that it's very hard to keep up. Artificial intelligence is just the latest revolution of it. Although
Yeah.
I think this is a biggie.
Yeah.
AI is a biggie. It's as big as electricity. It's as big as the computer itself. It's
Yeah. The
big.
internet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So, what would you tell to someone who's navigating just the upheaval and the rapidly changing times? Like how to be adaptable, how to persevere through the changes, lean into them instead of resist them, be shrewd and wise when navigating them. What advice would you give to those people?
Well, I'm not a good one to 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 respond to that because I struggle quite often with it. But what I try to do is categorize the different things. What is important for business? How will this help my business? Is it something that I can improve copywriting? Is it something that I can improve outlining? Is it something I can do research on and understand better? Like there's nothing better than perplexity for answering questions. I think it's ingenious. So things like that. I'm always learning, always open to trying to get ideas.
Yeah.
Actually implementing those. I mean, for example, passwords. I've got, I am so confused when I've got to find my passwords. I mean, just when we tried to connect tonight for this podcast, I had so much trouble finding how do I connect onto this. There's a lot of downside to technology. The
Yeah.
best thing is sort of let it fly off your back. Don't let it get you down. Try to keep up with it and do the best you can. I think technology is going to get easier. Uh,
Yeah.
the some things like using your finger as the password instead of trying to find the obscure word. That is fantastic. Or
Yeah.
the face image, much better than trying to do password.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you obviously didn't get to this place in your life by yourself. So talk to us about mentoring and how mentoring plays a role in people's lives and both as the person who's guiding others and the person that's being guided by them.
Mentoring is really important. I wish I had I I did a good bit of mentoring, both in college and my graduate work, as well as in my business. I always encouraged my employees to mentor other employees, the new people, um, but I didn't always do it myself. I could have been better at mentoring, although I do my best. I try, and I think it's philosophically, I think it's really important to do. Yes, I had mentors and know how important that is. Uh, and uh, and the amazing thing is, if you're looking for a mentor and you find one that would fit your profile or your needs, ask them. Just
Mhm.
try to reach out to them and ask them. If they can't do it, quite often they'll find somebody who can help you find the right person
Yeah,
for you. Uh,
yeah,
that's so important.
yeah. And then what does a good student look like? You went back to school, so you kind of got that experience. What is a good student?
Well, it wasn't my profile, I can tell you. I was a bad student. I was a bad student in grade school, in high school, in college, graduate school, and getting a doctorate. I was always fighting the system. And one of my professors, upon graduation with the doctorate, said to me, he said, "You could have enjoyed this so much more if you just gone with the flow." He said, "You fought us every single step of the way, and it must have been hard for you." And I said, "Yeah, but that's my personality. I, I take on challenges. I believe in challenging myself and challenging others, and uh, uh, and that's how I am. So,
Yeah. So you've jumped into storytelling, fiction writing. How have stories shaped you as a person? What are some of maybe fictional or real life stories that have shaped you or informed you or inspired you in your life?
well, all my my career was so diverse and so expansive that there were dozens of things that took place that I pick up in my stories. Like Zephyr's War is one incident, that happened in 5 minutes, and I put together a whole book around it. Artificial intelligence is about seeing some new technology and thinking about it and thinking about how it could help or hurt people. So it's like I've got hundreds of ideas that uh, that I could write stories about. The problem I have is I have too much. I have to weed out the mediocre
Filter. Yeah.
ideas. Yeah, and that's hard to do because in my mind they're brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, do you have like a way to test out your ideas to kind of see how people react to see which ones are better, or do you kind of use your own intuition to judge it?
Well, both. I have a group of readers, people who will read my ideas and give me feedback. Uh, it's funny. Not everybody wants to do that. The people are happy to read it, but they don't want. They're very shy about saying anything because they think
Mm,
they'll hurt your feelings. When really you're really seeking honest
yeah,
feedback.
hurt my feelings, please.
Yeah, please. Give me one right here. Um, um, but yeah, so I try to use them to get honest feedback, and then you have the publisher and the editors and people like that. They take more of an analytical approach to it. Will this sell? Is this a concept that really makes sense to somebody who's never heard about it before? Is it unique? Is it, or has it already been done? So they're looking at it from a different perspective. But
Yeah,
it's an interesting process.
yeah. So what are some of your favorite stories either to watch like as a movie or a show or to read or some of your favorite books that you've read?
Oh gosh, I just recently watched Ex Machina. Do you remember
Okay.
that? Remember that
So I
movie?
know about it. I've heard good things about it. I've not yet seen it though, or read it.
2000,
Yeah.
2014 it came out, and
Yeah.
it is my lady in here, and
Yeah.
it's artificial intelligence made easy.
Yeah.
and it is you fall in love with this robot, and
Yeah.
it is so cool. So that's a good one. Gosh, there's some other books um, that I'm thinking of that I've read. I read a lot, but when
Yeah.
you ask me for the title, I kind of go
They
blank.
cut. Yeah. Did you read much when you were a kid, or did it mostly
No,
come later in life? Okay.
do you know? I didn't read until I was in college.
Oh,
It
wow.
was unbelievable, and
Yeah.
uh, the I John, do you remember David McCullough, the historian
Uh,
David McCullough?
doesn't sound familiar.
He wrote a book about the Johnstown flood in
Okay.
Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and that book was he became my inspiration for writing. And I ran into him one time at the Fort Myers Airport in Florida,
Wow.
and I've met so many CEOs and important people, and I feel very comfortable around them. I ran into David McCullough, and I was tongue tied. He was my hero,
Yeah.
because of him, I actually started reading and writing. And I
Wow.
told him that story, and he said he's so impressed with that. He said it was so pleased to hear me say that. So, if you run into somebody that has inspired you, it's good to get up the nerve to say hello.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So you've talked a little bit about systems that you've used. So how do you think about systems? How did you think about them in the business? How do you think of them now as a writer? How do they enable and equip you to do better work?
Well, it I think writers have a real there's a real legitimate issue with regarding writing.
Mhm.
Uh, Artificial intelligence has the ability to really change book writing, article writing, and I worry that the whole idea of writing is going to change dramatically over the next 5 years. It's already happening.
Yeah.
People who have no business writing books are writing books because they can get a ghostwriter called artificial intelligence doing it
Everyone's
for
got a
them.
ghostwriter now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be used. But I think we have to go through that process and experience that kind of thing for a while until it works its way out of the system and we find a new equilibrium for what is acceptable in writing.
Mm,
But my joy comes from the writing, the process.
yeah.
I don't use artificial intelligence to to change my book or to read my book or to improve my book. I do use artificial intelligence to analyze my book. So
Hmm.
what what books are similar to mine? What
Hmm.
books use the same sort of energy? How
Yeah.
does the structure work in those books? And there are AI programs for that are
Yeah.
really quite good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've written two books and working on my third um, and yeah, it feels weird to to use AI in any particular way that would deal with the meat of the content that I'm writing, right? And so it's a great feedback tool, analyzer, um, kind of work through more difficult things. But yeah, it's kind of like what is that balance, and how do you navigate that as well? So
I can't think of the name of the software or the app for it, but there's one that really does a good job. It's free. It doesn't cost the author anything to have their book analyzed, and it does a tremendous job quickly. I mean,
yeah,
you send it in and it comes back and
yeah,
immediately. Uh,
yeah.
and it's one of the really neat things about it is it tells you who you write like, and
Oh, okay, yeah. That's
what
interesting.
what authors are you most is your writing style most like, And
Yeah.
much to my surprise, it was Tom Clancy. And
Oh, okay.
I just love that because Tom Clancy was my favorite author, uh,
Yeah.
and it's great fun.
Yeah. That's cool. What, do you have a favorite Tom Clancy book?
Well, I recently did a podcast on Tom Clancy books, and Without Remorse was the one that we were reviewing, and
Okay.
so that's the most recent one. I I don't think that's really my favorite. I think The Hunt for Red October or is really a good one, uh, but
Yeah. So his newest one is Defense Protocol. Is that what it was?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the latest one is.
That's on his website. That's the new one at the top. So Defense Protocol, Act of Defiance, Shadow State are the top three on the website. So we'll
I don't want anything too current.
yeah, you like going back back in time. Uh, cool. So, you've lived a lot of life. What other words of wisdom would you like to give us as we start to wrap things up here?
Well, I'm I'm doing a neat new project called Games We Played as Children.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get people to send in their ideas of games, looking back on your life, what kind of games did you play as children
Yeah.
that we can then get our grandchildren, our children and our grandchildren outside to play those
Yeah.
games and play them with the kids. Now that's a
Yeah.
big, complicated thing that I'm trying to work on. And I'm not sure that it's going to end up being a book, although I have enough
Yeah.
for about a half a book right now. Um, uh, but that's a big deal. When my grandkids come over, uh, rather than talking to us, they would rather open their iPads and play their
Yeah.
games. And we said, no, that's not the way it's going to happen at Grandma's house and Grandpa's house. We're going to play. We're going to play games,
Yeah. So what
and
kind of games are you looking for? Like
well, anything you did is, it could be board games, it could be
yeah.
dolls, it could be, but mostly outside. What did you do outside? And some of them are just so much fun. I mean, these people who are older and semi-retired or retired, thinking back on their childhood and the games they played, invariably smile.
Mm,
They have a big smile on their face and they get so wistful, and they think about, wow, life was fun. We had so much fun. We did so many things. And
yeah.
and that is really cool. That's really, that's what I'm trying to do. That's the fun of what I'm working
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So what are you up to? Like what's your next projects outside of the gaming, the games, kids games? You have any
Well,
other books you're working on?
I have a book that is in production right now called Ghost Town. I have a book that is being written right now called Bloody Moon,
Okay.
and so that will make four books, novels in my current plan,
Yeah.
um, and those are all in production. Then we'll have the children's book will come next, and then I'm looking for my next project after that.
Is it I assume it'll be writing, but are you suggesting it might be something else?
Might be something else.
Okay.
It could be anything.
Yeah, yeah.
I do a lot of painting, and
Okay.
could be a painting, a splurge of painting.
Is that painting on the top shelf there? Is that yours with the
Yes, it
flowers?
is
Okay.
the flowers
That one.
and
Yeah.
this. These are
Oh, wow. Okay.
some of my works.
Wow.
I work in pastel and watercolor, and it
Okay.
gives me
Yeah.
great joy to do
Oil
to do that.
pastel or dry
No, no,
pastel?
regular dry pastel over top of watercolor. So I use
Yeah.
watercolor stains as the base, and then pastels over top,
Okay.
and it creates great vibration, and I just love it. Really have a good time. I do things
Yeah.
that make me happy. Whatever
Yeah.
makes me happy. That's what I'm
You're
doing.
you're moving. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Now, how can people connect with you? What's your website? Are you on social media? How do they buy the books if they're
Yeah,
interested?
I'm on social media quite a bit, but my website is jamesrgregory-books.com. And I know
Okay.
that's complex. It's got that stupid R in there, but that's required. So James R. Gregory-books.com. And
Or Google it and it'll probably pop up on.
probably
Yeah.
so. And the books are all available on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. Would love people to buy them. It makes me feel good to see that they're actually being read.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Anything else?
No, it's just been fun talking to you, Jason. I knew we were going to get along really well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story and your life with us today. This has been an inspirational people interview, and I'm Jason Scott Montoya. We'll see you on the next one.